Hello everyone. What we're going to be doing today is talking to you about how to solve equations with variables on both sides. And when it says both sides, it's talking about both sides of the equal sign. So whenever you're solving equations, we're going to go over the steps right here of how to do it. I'm just going to rewrite it. We have negative f plus 2 plus 4f equals 8 minus 3f. Now what I'd like to do when I'm solving an equation, I'm just teaching somebody to begin with, is I want you guys to understand where the equal sign is. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to go over here. We're going to write kind of some steps down here. You guys can kind of write this down. So step 1, what I like to do is I search on both sides and I ask myself this question. Can I combine like terms? So put if possible, because sometimes it's not possible. If possible, comma, combine like terms. Alright, so let's kind of look, see if there's any terms that are alike, that happen to be alike. So if possible, combine like terms. Let me scan here. Ooh, got a negative f. I got a positive 4f. Well, when I combine a negative f and a positive 4f, that leaves me with a total of 3f's. And those are like terms that I could combine. Okay, there we go. Now, so if possible, combine the like terms. It makes it a lot easier. Okay. Now, step 2 is very important. We have to do what's called isolate the variable. Or we're going to try to isolate the variable. Now when I say isolate the variable, it's like whatever the letter is that you're solving for, you want to isolate the variable to one side of the equal sign. To one side of the equal sign. Now, did I say which side? No, I didn't say which side, just to one side. So this is where I look, and I'm like, where do I have the most variables? So this says negative 3f, all right, and it says positive 3f. So I have more, technically I have more on this side than I do this side. So I'm going to choose, this time, I'm going to choose the left-hand side. So then you have to ask yourself this question. Okay, how do I move things across the equal sign? So in order for that to happen, you have to cancel out on one side. You got to get rid of it. Well, how do I get rid of a negative 3f? I have to add 3f, and then that adds to 0. These are called, just so you know, they're called additive inverses. Additive inverse. All right? And additive inverses give you 0. So whatever, but here's the thing, we call this balancing the equation. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side of the equation to keep it in balance. So a lot of times teachers will kind of say, hey, have you ever seen a balance where you got like this balance and you've got some plates and you got a T, like it's like a base, and you put something on this side and you got to put the same on this side, and if you put 2 on this side, you got to put 2 on this side. So basically you're balancing the equation just like you would balance something that was like the scales of justice. All right, you're balancing them, keeping them perfectly balanced. So if we have 3 f's and then we add 3 more f's, that's a total of 6 f's. Okay, so what do we have? We have 6f, we have plus 2, and that's all equal to 8. So there's our equal sign right here. Just kind of rewrote the equation. So if I isolate the variable to one side of the equal sign, what I have to do now is I have to isolate all the constants to the other side. To the other side of what? Of the equal sign. Now what does that mean? Well, I chose the left side to be where my variables were, my f. Okay, well I got to make the constants on the other side. So I can move all my constants to the other side, which happens to be the right in this particular case. And then you ask yourself, how do I get rid of this positive 2? Well, I just take it away. Well, whatever I do to one side, I have to take it away to the other side. So here's what we have left. That zeroes out. These are additive inverses. We have 6f equals 8 minus 2, which is 6. All right, and then the last step, the very last step, you can pretty much see that f is going to equal 1 because 6 times 1 is 6. But the last step is one of two things, okay? Most of the time, this will work. Just divide by the coefficient in front of the variable. All right. Now, technically, that'll work in every single time, but sometimes when we're dealing with fractions, I don't divide both sides by the coefficient, so I wouldn't necessarily divide both sides by this number right here, 6. Here's what I would do. So we get f equals 1. Sometimes I like to multiply by the reciprocal, also known as the multiplicative inverse. So what does that mean? I could also technically multiply by 1/6, then multiply this by 1/6, and you'd still get f equals 1, because a sixth of 6 is 1, and a sixth of 6 is 1. So you could still also, what's the other thing you could do? Multiply both sides by what's called the multiplicative inverse of the coefficient. Man, got some weird words, don't we? Totally weird. In front of the variable. Now, I usually only do this one when I'm dealing with fractions, okay? So you can either do this, which is divide both sides by the number that's in front of the variable, all right? So if you're breaking it down, most of the time this works because it'll be a number that you can clearly see. Or you can multiply both sides by what's known as the multiplicative inverse. When we get to fractions, I'll show you more about that. But right now we have f equals 1. Whew. Now, in review, if possible, combine like terms. Then isolate the variable to one side. Then isolate all the constants to the other side. Then divide by the coefficient in front of the variable, or multiply both sides by the multiplicative inverse, and that's how you solve an equation. We will do more than one example, but this time I'm not going to write down all the steps. We're just going to talk about them. So here we go. This one's going to be a lot easier. All right. When I say a lot easier, it's a lot faster. 2 minus 2n equals 3n plus 17. So we have to make a decision. All right. We can't combine any like terms, so I'm moving on to the next step. Let's move all the variables to one side. How do we do that? How do we isolate them? Well, I have 3 n's here. I got negative 2 in here. Well, I got more on the right side, so I'm going to move everything to the right side this time. No, I'm not fast-forwarding the video. I'm just moving a little bit faster this time. So we're going to add 2n to both sides. That zeroes out. What are we left with? We're left with a 2 equals 3n plus 2n, which is a total of 5n. 5n plus 17. Well, if I move all the variables to one side of the equal sign, I have to move all the constants to the other side. So I got to get rid of this 17. How do I get rid of a 17? I subtract 17. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. And 2 minus 17 is negative 15. And that equals 5 times the number that we're searching for. And then the last but not least step, there's two things I could do. I could either divide both sides by 5, which I'm going to do because that's the easiest thing for me to think about, or I could multiply both sides by a fifth, but I'm not going to do that because this is easier just to divide both sides by 5 in this particular circumstance. So negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3. And negative 3 is equal to n, and that's what I'm going to type in right here. Negative 3. All right, there we go. Now, what if we have equations with variables on both sides and decimals and fractions. Oh no! We do the same process. We just do it with decimals and fractions. So you could put that in your journal, and you could put this in your journal, and we're going to work through it right now, except I'm not going to write down all the steps in words. We're just going to do it together in your journal. So we have 7b minus 2/5 equals 6b minus 7/5. So please do not freak out just because they're fractions. We're doing the same process, they're just different numbers. So what's the first step? Can we combine like terms? Can I combine these? Nope. Can I combine these? Nope. So now we need to move all the variables to one side. Well, where's there the most b's? I see 6b's here. I see 7b's here. So there's more over here. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to take away 6b from this side. And I'm going to take away 6b from this side. That's not 66, that's a 6b. Now 7b, take away 6b is 1b. So I got 1b left. Now if I move all the variables to one side of the equal sign, alright, so now I'm going to get rid of this negative 2/5. Well, how do you get rid of a negative 2/5? You just add 2/5. And that could be, zeroes it out. So now I have b plus 0. And b plus 0 is just b. Kind of move down a little bit. Well, whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side of the equation. Now this is going to be really, really easy because these are the same denominator. So it's basically saying, like, what's negative 7 plus 2? Well, that's negative 5. Negative 5 over 5, b equals negative 1. Now, let's say you didn't know how to do like negative 7 over 5 plus 2 over 5 because you forgot how to add fractions. Well, if you have a graphing calculator, it's very, very easy. You just hit alpha y equals enter. All right, type in negative 7. There you go. Over 5. All right, we'll add a little 2 over 5. Alpha y equals enter. Add a little 2 over 5, just like that. And look what happens. Boom, equals negative 1. You could also do it horizontally. Do negative 7 divided by 5. And plus 2 divided by 5, just like that in the old graphing calculator. Boom, it still equals a negative 1. All right, and so that's what I'm going to type in right here, negative 1. No, not there. Hold on. There we go. Negative 1. Voila. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, good. Got decimals. Sweet. Decimals. They don't. Super easy. No problem. We got this. So here we go. We got a 4a plus 5 equals 2 plus 3.25 a's. There's my equal sign. I didn't do a very good job there. That was horrible, but that's okay. Well, that's close enough. Okay, so there's my equal sign. So can we combine those? No. Can we combine these? No. Where do I have the most a's? On the left side. So now I'm going to take away 3.25a from one side, and I'm going to take away 3.25a from the other side. Now, why do I have to take away? Because that says plus, so I have to do a minus. Remember, they have to be additive inverse. If we got to get to 0 on this side, whatever we do to one side, you have to do to the other. And so we just do 4 minus 3.25. Well, if you didn't know that that was 0.75a, if you didn't know that, you could still use the calculator and do 4 minus 3.25, just like that. It still gets 0.75. And then, if I move all the variables to the left-hand side, I got to move all the numbers or the constants to the right-hand side. So how do I do that? Well, I got to take away a 5, which zeroes that out. Take away 5, and 2 minus 5 is negative 3. So here's what I have left, everybody. I've got 0.75 times a equals negative 3. Now, technically, since you have a calculator, you could divide both sides by 0.75 and negative 3 by 0.75. But if I said, you know what, you're not allowed to use a calculator, not very many people can just do that in their head. So when we can't use calculators, this is where fractions are awesome. If you know that 0.75 is like 3/4, 3/4, then you could say 3/4 of a equals negative 3 over 1. That's what negative 3 is. And then we do what's called the multiplicative inverse. This is what's awesome about fractions. What is the multiplicative inverse of 3 over 4? It's 4 over 3. And now I have this is also 4 over 3. And this 4 cancels this 4 out. And this 3 cancels this 3 out. So we're just left with a. And then we have negative 3 times 4 which is negative 12. But oh, wait, these cancel out, and we're left with a negative 4. So I know my answer is going to be negative 4, and we didn't have to use a calculator. That's why I like fractions, because it's easy to use the multiplicative inverse and multiply it on both sides. But let's say you weren't going to do that, and you have a calculator used. We'll just do negative 3, and then divide it by 0.75. And what do you get? You still get negative 4. So I know my answer is negative 4.